Hello YouTube, my name is Omega Pyron, and this is going to be my Blue Eyes Chaos Max Ritual Toolbox deck. I just want to show you the mat that I use. I'm a big fan of the Blue Eyes. A lot of my decks have it in there, but this is just one variant. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start. So I only use one Blue Eyes in this deck. It's because of advanced ritual art, but I do use Blue Eyes Chaos Max, and it's searchable, just like all these other rituals. You'll notice that there's a level 8 theme going through the deck. So I have Birds as well. Baroness can shuffle all of the spell and traps your opponent controls, or 3 of them, up to 3. And Baron can shuffle up to 3 monsters your opponent controls to the deck, so they're really good going second. Blue Eyes Chaos Max is pretty good going second too if you draw the right cards. I also use Lord of the Red. This is more of a going first card, but still pretty good. And then now for the level 7s, we have Saravis. I usually try and keep this in my hand when I have Megazaborg or just use the incantation effects, but I try and end with it on my field if I'm going first. It's a pretty good interruption. And then I also have Incantation Chalice Line, and that one adds a lot of consistency to the deck that you really need. So it's really good. There's also level 6s. We have Saphira, which basically you could tribute out Ben 10, and because they're both level 6, it works perfectly. You search a fairy from your deck and add it to your hand, usually if you have it normal summon, and Saphira lets you draw 2 and discard 2. And then also her ritual spell is really good. It helps protect your rituals from battle or destruction. And then there's also Necroz of Unicorn. That one's level 4, but it works really good with its own ritual spell, Kaleidoscope, which lets you pretty much get a free search thanks to, what is it? Herald of Arclight. Alright, that's the rituals. Now for the support, we have the Incantations. Now a lot of people will use like a very minimal incantation engine, but I try and use a decent amount. These 3, or these 6 right here are the ones you want to see in your opening hand. And this one you always want to have extra copies in the deck. This one's pretty useful too, just for searching out either advanced ritual art or the incantation ritual. But other than that, your main search is going to be through Talisman. You actually use both of them, but he's more important since there's more ritual monsters than ritual spells. And then we have the best normal summon in the deck, triple Megazaborg. If you can summon this out, and if it's protected by Saravis, pretty much got game right there. As long as you're going first and the board's not too established. It's very hard to stop with hand traps other than Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence, and Saravis would protect that. So if you got that, not only do you destroy your opponent's extra deck, but you just gain a lot of advantage, which I'll show you in a minute. And for the fairies, through Ben 10, if it's tributed, you could search either Maju, which is just a free ritual search. I only use one because, you know, I have trying to minimize my normal summon draws to Megazaborg. And then Vanity's Ruler, if I don't draw any normal summons, it's definitely a really good cherry on top of your ending board. I'm also testing Light and Darkness Dragon. Might cut it, but it's a really good, just like Vanity's Ruler, it sets up a pretty decent block. And then even if your opponent destroys it, you get a ritual back, so it's pretty good. And I'm also testing a few side deck cards, I guess you could say. But because you don't really use your normal summon, aside from these cards, which is a pretty decent amount, but they're not mandatory. Raw Sphere Mode can definitely help break boards. Like I said, this deck is still testing stuff, so that's why I use it. Nibiru, same philosophy, you know, when your opponent special summoning like mad, but I don't want to draw multiple copies of this and break, just like all these one-ofs. You know, you don't want to draw too many of them. And I I do use double Amano Iwado just because you want to have it live at all times, so just in case you draw one, you have another one. What's good about making a big deck count is that you usually don't draw your bricks as often, even though you do want to see Megazaborg. Now let's go to the spells. Even though I'm using Megazaborg, there's really no downside to running Pot of Extravagance other than the price, but it's going to be reprinted, so once that happens, hopefully it'll be affordable for all the rogue decks. Free advantage, your only draw spell in the deck, so it's always live, just about. Even with Megazaborg, you could still use it. Maybe not immediate, but I'll show you how. And then also we use both of the preparation of rites cards. We have pre-prep and regular preparation of rites. Originally in Chaos Max, you can't use pre-prep because both Advanced Ritual Art and Chaos Form are not, don't list Blue Eyes, Chaos Max, and the Ritual spell, but I put a lot of different ritual cards in here, as you saw, which are all pretty much valid targets. And then preparation of rites can search any level 7 or lower, and then you also get to recur a ritual spell from the graveyard. So what I try doing is either baiting my opponent with Advanced Ritual Art and then just retrieving it for free, or I like to discard like a ritual from Incantation Chalice line and then either get it back through this or recur it from your other incantations. And the monster you usually search for this is either Chalice Slime or Saravis, both level 7s, but if you already have like one of those, you could also search Necroz Unicorn. It's a really good extender, pretty much. Alright, and then I also use, get these over here. I also use triple creature swap. So the moment I draw this is pretty much the main reason why I'm running Chaos Max in this deck. The moment I draw this, I try and search for Chaos Max immediately. So it's definitely Chaos Max's strongest combo is creature swap. There's a few other cards that are like creature swap, but creature swap's definitely the best because it's only like a worst case scenario. It's like a -1, but the other ones are like -2 or 3. But more on that later. I also use the ritual spells. So these two are definitely the best ones. Most of the other ones are only in because of pre-preparation of rites, but I try and search this one, and this one is just for emergency if I can't set up my board to be how I like it. I use this as kind of like a easy access, but I'm planning on cutting it just because you don't want to draw Blue Eyes in this deck, but it's still very useful. And this card is amazing with Chalice Line. Basically, you get to use 3 of your incantations every turn with this, so it really gives you the advantage you need. And then now we use for the pre-prep targets. All these are searchable. This one is probably the least useful, just because Graveyard Effect isn't really that good. But this one, it protects any of your rituals by battle or card effect. So it's really good Graveyard Effect. This one you could banish your spirit monsters, like Amano Iwado, if you need to use them as costs. Usually it doesn't come up, but you never know. If you draw one, it could happen. And then also Necroz Kaleidoscope, just because it's a really good extender, and negating all of your opponent's extra deck monsters is always good. And then now for this card. This is my, I guess, spicy tech. So with this one, you could, the moment you summon Megazaborg, you send a bunch of your cards from your extra deck to the graveyard. And normally, like, the best case scenario, you just send 3 Herald of the Arclights, and maybe if your opponent had a field, you could send like a couple Elder Entity Natis to destroy a couple cards, but usually that doesn't happen because if you pull off Megazaborg, it's going first usually. And this is just a really good follow-up play on your next turn. And then I only use 1 trap, evenly matched, just like Raw Sphere mode and Nibiru. It's really good at breaking boards, and it's more or less a test, you know, just in case you don't want to draw more than one of those, I don't think. So if you ever play against a deck, like a back row heavy deck, you definitely want to put a couple more of those in. So I'll go into the extra deck right now. And for your Megazord targets, you have the standard Herald of the Arclight. As you know, when each one's sent, you can send all 3 of them at once. And then you add ritual spells or ritual monsters. I typically add, try and get like Chalice Slime, because usually you want to search Saravis first, that way you could pull off Megazord. And then you could search Chalice Slime, the Incantation Ritual, maybe Advanced Ritual Art or Lord of Red, and just go off from there. And then these are the Natis. I still use them. It's always a good option. I mean, if you need more room, you could always cut one. You usually don't need to pop that many cards, but you never know. Omega is another really good card. I only use 1 Blue Eyes, but let's say I draw it. This card's perfect because you could shuffle it back and then make your Advanced Ritual Art live again. And you could also shuffle back 1 more of these Arclights. If you're trying to use a Necroz Kaleidoscope as well as Megazord, both, so that's really good too. And then, so what I'll usually do is instead of sending those, I'll send these 4, and then I'll also try and send a few other cards. So I'll send Predaplant, Chimera Rafflesia, and during the next standby phase, you could add a fusion spell from your deck to your hand. So that's why I have the Miracle Synchro Fusion, because you could just banish the cards you send and summon a powerful monster. And the materials I have for that are number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon, Titanic Galaxy. It qualifies as an Exceed monster. It has to be a dragon though. I'll show you why in a minute. This one's a Pendulum, this one's a Fusion, and this one's a Synchro. And they all summon Zork, or Zark, Supreme King Zark. And this one's basically Chaos Max, but the moment he comes out, he blows up your opponent's board, he nukes it. He also, if he ever gets destroyed, he goes to your extra deck and basically negates all Fusion, Synchro, and Exceed monsters effects, and acts as kind of like a Masked Hero Dark Law, where every time your opponent searches, you get to destroy that card, once per turn, of course, but still really good. Usually you'd probably win if you pull out Megazord, but you'd be surprised, you know, some people don't quit. And then I also run Naturia Beast and Naturia Exteria. Now, the reason why I run those 2 is just like Zark, you could summon it, and I also have Naturia Barkion that qualifies as the materials for those. So if you're playing against a spell or trap heavy deck, this is your choice. You could also run a Luna Knight Fusion to give it more attack strength instead of like an Atis. That's a good choice for another option. But if you want to try and use Omega, then this is your play. Usually you send these 3, and then you send, so that's 4, and then that's 7, and then you could send any other one. So you could send an Atis, for example. That's a good one. But if you want to do a Zark play, you're gonna want to keep your Natis. You send, so that's 4, and then you send Barkion. You send Hope Harbinger, Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate, and Odd Eyes. So that's perfectly 8. And what's cool is, let's say you send these ones right here, you'd still have enough for like a Pot of Extravagance. You have 7 cards in your extra deck. And after you do the fusion, so for this you have 6. So there you go. Now for the side deck, and these are tokens. You gotta go with Kaiba, you know, because it's a Blue Eyes deck still. For the side deck, I use 2 more Evenly Match, 2 more Nibiru, 2 more Raw Sphere Mode. Really good side deck cards. I wish they were a little cheaper, you know, but they're still really good. And then I use There Can Only Be One. It doesn't hinder your deck like at all usually. The only monster you'd have more than one type on is maybe like dragons, but that's pretty rare, you know. And then I use Danko Seka because you don't need your normal summon, and same with Lava Golem. It's basically another version of Sphere Mode, so really easy to break boards. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, thank you everyone for watching my deck profile. I'll show you a test hand in a minute as well. Please hit that like button if you want to see more deck profiles. This is just one of them. And like I said before, Blue Eyes is one of my favorite decks, monsters. And just to let you know, these are the Imperial Duelist sleeves. I don't know if you can tell that, but they have a special holographic coating. So if you have any questions or comments, just please leave them below and hit the like button. Thank you.